Hello gamers, so over the weekend I played a few hours of the Diablo 4 Early Access Beta and I wanted to share my opinions on the game so far as a Diablo casual. Because I know there must be some of you out there just like me who are interested in checking this out because of the slightly different approach they're taking this time around. A lot of the things I'm about to say are probably things that Diablo fans will respond with, duh, it's Diablo, it's supposed to be that way, which is absolutely fine. I get that not every game is designed for me, and there are probably games that I love that other people just don't get either. If it ain't already obvious, I'm not a diehard fan of the series or the genre. I have played bits of Diablos 1 to 3 and also a bit of the Torchlight games. I do want to like them, but I never got on with the fact that I was just in one dungeon going deeper and deeper. I like the game world to feel vast and expansive the way World of Warcraft is. I'm not a fan of procedural dungeons. I find the idea quite lazy. Procedural stuff doesn't make me feel like a game is replayable. It just makes me feel like there's going to be the same generic assets over and over again and that chunks of the game are not carefully designed for a unique experience. I feel the same about randomized RNG stats on gear. I do prefer to pick up legendary gear that looks and behaves in a unique manner. Oh my word, these socks are fire! I can't believe it dropped! 500 armor plus 50 to daggers and auto stealth when I look at an enemy. Oh my days, oh my days, oh my days. Yo, what's up? Hey man, oh you got these socks too? Yeah, they just dropped from me off this boss. It was such a good fight, wasn't it? Oh these? Yeah, they're cool, aren't they? I just looted them off a barrel actually. They're so cool man, they've got 50 armor, plus 5 badminton skills, plus 10 fishing. I love the way they look just like yours. So with that all said, how was the Diablo 4 beta for a casual like myself? From what I've seen of the world at the moment, I'm liking the tone of the game. It truly does feel dark and brooding and sometimes feels like it's a horror game. But it never gets into the realm of scary, so no need to play this with all the lights on whilst hiding behind a sofa. The graphics are detailed enough for how the game is presented, and by that I mean the viewpoint is quite high. And from this distance, it's about detailed enough for me. The soundtrack is just perfect and adds that finishing touch to the dark nature of the game. It's hard to explain, but it has that quality of making you feel like the world has depth and mystery and you're just scratching the surface of things. So in terms of how the game is put together, it feels and looks like a AAA title so far. From what I've heard, the tone is supposed to be a throwback to the earlier, darker titles in the series, and if that's what you're looking for, then this nails it. But my concerns with the procedural nature of the series spills out into the overworld. I've walked into about 4 towns now and I know that towns and the outworld is not procedural, but it feels cut and paste, just like the dungeons. The main hub town is pretty big and quite unique, but the rest of them don't really stand out in any particular way, at least not yet. Maybe when I start visiting them more often I'll recognize a few standout features. So far the dungeons feel like 10 blocks of assets repeated over and over. I haven't done that many dungeons, but the ones I have gone into look different to other ones, but have the same assets repeated within themselves. I hope that makes sense, and I'll try to show some footage where you can see that. As a Diablo casual, I find that very unappealing. I know that most corridors are going to look the same as the last, so I'm not even bothered to walk down them if I know it doesn't lead to my objective. I also know that the gear I get during the early levels of the game are going to be outclassed quite quickly as I level up, so if I'm not that concerned about the potential gear, and I've already seen what the dungeon has to show in the first few minutes, then most of the time I'm just beelining it to the end. So correct me if I'm wrong about this, but it looks to me as though stats and perks are random. If you're not familiar with this, it means that a piece of armor or weapon you pick up might look the same as another, but the damage and bonuses it gives to your abilities and stuff are totally random. I don't really like the system. I get why Diablo is like this, but it doesn't excite me to pick up a weapon that might have 2 great perks for the abilities I like to use, and then the third one has nothing to do with my playstyle. I prefer if there was more uniqueness with the gear, even if that means less volume. But I get it, this is Diablo and the excitement of picking up something random and checking what you've got is part of the game. My enjoyment of the game relies solely on the combat, since I've established that picking up randomized items in randomized dungeons doesn't really excite me. I'm playing a rogue, and my experience with other games gave me expectations. So I'm thinking I'll be stealthing around a lot, standing behind enemies and dealing massive damage to single targets. The thing about Diablo is that the enemies truly live up to the label of mob. They come in large groups and swarm you quickly, so no matter what class you're playing, you will be taking damage. I have tried a few different builds so far, but for the time being, I feel like the best approach for me is to stay at a distance using tools like my caltrops or dashing through enemies to avoid them, and whittling down the enemy's health bars with my ranged weapon, and if they come close, I finish them off with my daggers. In that sense, I do feel that the squishiness and agility of a rogue character is present. I played alongside a friend for a while who chose the barbarian class, and he didn't seem as concerned about avoiding damage. Combat feels like it's mostly about crowd control and area of effect damage. I'm slowing down enemies, putting a vulnerable debuff on as many of them as I can, and maximizing my damage. I'm focused on my cooldowns and managing my health mostly, so I would blow all my cooldowns, move out of the way and heal myself if needed. Rinse and repeat. It does get a bit more exciting during boss fights, and even feels a bit like a bullet hell shooter sometimes when there are projectiles and spinny things threatening my health. But even then, I sometimes just prefer to tank the damage and use a health potion if I can afford to do that. What I found quite surprising is that Blizzard decided you can only have 6 abilities active at any one time. That's right, 6 abilities. If you look at this skill tree here, you'll see there are 7 different kinds of abilities. It starts with the basic skills that don't need energy resources. Then there are core skills for big damage. And on my rogue, I have agility skills to stay mobile. I have subterfuge for stealthy stuff, and imbuement if I want poison, etc. It goes without saying that you have to specialize and be decent at one thing and utterly garbage at everything else. I wanted to have strong bow abilities, strong melee abilities, and also the option of poisoning enemies and being able to disappear when I need to. It turns out that currently I have strong bow abilities, limited options up close, I can reposition myself well, but I can't disappear or poison enemies. I don't even know where my ultimate ability will fit into all of this. I don't know how this will pan out in the endgame. Maybe it forces players to be quite unique, or maybe it will turn out that the meta favors 6 specific abilities. Who knows? I tend to go on autopilot mode during combat and use the same strategy for every enemy or group of enemies. Going into autopilot when playing a game is quite a big concern for me, because that's when I start to think about where the enjoyment of the game comes from, and I start to think about the hamster wheel and gameplay loop. Why am I even playing this game, and what is the developer's intentions for me as a player? During the first few years of World of Warcraft, I was in love with that game. For the longest time, I didn't even know what I was doing, and one random stranger even took the time to send me a private message to tell me I was the worst geared hunter he had ever encountered. But even after that revelation, I really enjoyed exploring the world of Azeroth and discovering new areas and quests to explore, and huge bosses to overcome. Nothing will ever top that feeling I had when I first walked into Darnassus as a level 5 night elf and felt that sense of grandeur and realised this game hadn't even begun to show me all it had to offer. I dropped off WoW when they started to introduce daily and weekly quests, because it was an obvious mechanism to keep me playing and to make me stay on that hamster wheel. The only purpose really was to keep me on the wheel until the release of their next expansion. But anyway, back to Diablo 4. So if the combat doesn't really require that much of my focused attention, what am I supposed to focus on to get my enjoyment? I'm not big on looting. Don't get me wrong, I do enjoy finding nice upgrades, but a constant feed of randomized loot to compare and think about doesn't really excite me. I've already said it's not the dungeons, because you see most of what it has to offer in the first few minutes. The story, it's there. I'm not that invested yet in the battle between evil and eviler, to be honest. And there are plenty of side quests to run into that go a long way to fleshing out the world. The cutscenes are quite nice, and I do like that they put effort into those, but I don't really care about any of the characters, and I don't really want to. I haven't felt a reason to care. I'm not saying by any means that I've seen everything that the game has to offer. I can already tell with all of the systems that I've been shown in the first 20 levels of the game that there are ability modifiers that can change how my character plays. There are ultimate moves I'm yet to see, and probably different looking parts of the world to explore. As a casual, There are new elements to this game that are very promising, mainly the open nature of the world and being able to team up with friends and strangers to fight world bosses, for example. But the core gameplay isn't designed for me. And I know that most of what I've said in this video will make the more experienced players say, duh, it's Diablo, this is normal. And I think that people who like this style of game will be very happy with the expanded scope of the world and the great production values and of course the gameplay. But as a relative newcomer, Diablo 4 isn't going to convert me into a regular. I will probably still check out the open beta next weekend. Maybe something will change my mind, I don't know. And if it gets released on Game Pass, I'll definitely put some hours into it, but right now, what I've experienced hasn't convinced me to drop £70 on this game. Anyway, thanks for watching this video. If you've been playing the beta or intend to play the beta next weekend, please share your thoughts and feel free to let me know how wrong I am. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.